and we are here to talk about Zion Williamson and the Pelicans continuing to provide us with a ton of news that we may not want to hear. So tune in.
The New Orleans Pelicans select Zion Williamson.
And Holiday, the dribble penetration. So tough going to the goal. High up on the rim to rip it down.
All right. Welcome, Mason, Jeremy. We meet again. We converge, and I feel like we had to do this emergency podcast style. I'm glad that our time worked together. How are you guys doing? I'm sure you guys watched the very thrilling game in Philadelphia between two teams that were totally healthy with all of their best players.
I actually did lock in. The lighting hasn't changed, but our win total has. So,
I'll be honest. I watched the first quarter, and then I watched my my alternate college football team shit the bed in the fourth quarter. So I should have just stuck with the Pelicans. the team all right, let's be real for a sec. The team I wanted to lose won. The team I wanted to win lost. So.
I was waiting for you to drop that one.
For listeners, Mason is a big Texas fan, as you can see with the thing slapped across his forehead there. F Funky, shout out to you, man. We are definitely going to be suspended one game for tardiness. I think Jeremy's taking that suspension the next one. Mason as well.
I'm not watching the Boston game, baby. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Whoever the dude was that wanted us to get better lighting, still haven't seen that cash come through, my man. Just whenever you get that to us, we will upgrade the lighting situation. Anyways, thank you for joining, folks. We will try to get to the meat of the topic very quickly. The Pelicans announced two big things today, back to back. Just kind of give you the 1-2. And first, they announced that they waived Trey James. No, I'm joking. That's not the thing they announced today. They announced that was yesterday, and they signed Keon Brooks Jr. No, they announced Herb Jones out indefinitely with a torn labrum in his right shoulder. They did imaging. The MRI revealed a torn labrum, and they didn't put a timeline on it. Although I think Mr. Lopez accidentally tweeted that he is out for the season. And honestly, that may very well be the case. That might actually be the best thing for Herb, and that might actually be the best thing for the Pelicans. Let's talk about
newborn parent brain fart.
Yeah. Shout out to Mr. Lopez and his family for welcoming a baby daughter to the world. So shout out to them. Anyways, Herb Jones hurt. Want to get that instant, quick gut reaction when you guys saw that news pop through. Where was your head at?
What's new? This is the season for Mel. What's new? I don't know. Nothing different. And little did we know that was the hashtag good news.
Yeah. There are situations where you're like, okay, the silver lining behind someone getting hurt who's good is that it helps the tank. I feel like with Herb, that's not how I feel, because he's one of those guys I feel like he's still getting better, and I want to see him develop his own craft, his own skills more, and that matters way more to me than maybe the extra game or two that we would win with Herb Jones in the lineup that would impact the lottery odds. So it is a bummer, to see that happen to a guy like Herb. Like for example, like if you don't want anyone to get injured, but if it was like someone who, someone like it's CJ's point of his career where you know who he is as a player, it kind of hurts less than someone like Herb who is still getting better, every year and every game. So that's kind of how I felt.
Not even that. Schmidt posted yesterday that Herb was plus 19 on off, best on the team, and yeah, it's just like as soon as you put something positive out for a Pelican, this happened.
Mason's suspension started, and I think all of our suspensions started, and the software kicked us off. And so we're back, though. We're back.
Prez said that we wanted him injured and immediately booted us off here. That's real stroke, baby. The moment he dropped his name.
I thought for a second Mason was just being punished for being a Texas fan, and then, this streaming platform was like, we can't handle this overt Texas merchandise. But we're back. We're back. Apologize for the brief technical difficulties here. So to everyone's point, I think we had this was the correct order. To both of y'all's point, I think the one thing about Herb is he is very much like, I don't want to use the cliche leader in the locker, but the team very much rallies around him as a person, on and off the court. And I think in a season where so many things have gone bad, it's super nice to have the all-time vibes guy, and the guy that's really like, like busting ass on defense and playing hard, and how energetic and contagious his play style is. It's nice to have that person around, and so it's sad to see from that perspective that a lot of these players are probably gonna have to suffer through a lot more losing, when with Herb off the court, because as Jeremy pointed out, and as we've tweeted about and talked about, the on-off splits with Herb Jones Jr. on the court are bonkers. Plus 19 on the season. I think that probably went down a little bit after the shell shack and the Pelicans took against Portland.
He's been a positive every year, though. He's been a positive every year since his rookie season. Like,
Yes.
he is a winning player. He is a force multiplier for winning. So you're going to miss him.
Just as apparently Jose has been 41 and 26 when Jose is healthy.
You saw the stat, yes, sir.
And whatever that awful record is when he's not.
Shout out to
Coach. Franchise player. Calvin, franchise player. I know Calvin's listening on the Discord. Shout out to our Discord. Anyways, let's actually move to the Zion stuff. Very shortly after the Pelicans announced the Herb Jones stuff, while everyone was struggling to process what the hell was going on and reacting, the Pelicans announced that Zion Williamson has been suspended for 1 game due to conduct detrimental to the team or violating the team policies. And they put out a statement. I actually want to read the statement from David Griffin and the statement from Zion Williamson, so we have their exact words in front of us. So this is what the Pelicans said. The New Orleans Pelicans have suspended forward Zion Williamson for 1 game for a violation of team policies. It was announced today by Executive Vice President of Basketball Operations, David Griffin. Williamson will miss tonight's game against the Philadelphia 76ers at Wells Fargo Center and will rejoin the team tomorrow. A statement from David Griffin: this 1-game suspension is a result of failing to meet our team standards. His dedication to this organization is of paramount significance to us and to him. He has taken accountability for his actions and reaffirmed that commitment to the team today. I'm confident he will continue to evolve positively on and off the floor. And there's a statement from Zion Williamson: I take full responsibility for this suspension. I've worked extremely hard in rehab to get healthy, to deliver for this team. There's no excuse for being late to team activities. I have apologized to Miss Benson and my teammates and coaches. I also owe an apology to the fans. I can and will be better as a teammate and a member of this organization. First of all, doozy, the Pelicans putting out those statements. Again, I'm going to put it to y'all. Instant reaction, get the Shams notification, or however you saw it, Blue Sky, Discord, wherever it was. Walk me through your emotions there.
Am I a bad fan for laughing? Because I was like, of course, he finally gets everyone hyped up, gets everyone excited. Even in a loss, he plays incredible. He has the big highlight. He's active on defense. He's himself on offense. He looks spry. And of course he misses a game when Embiid's not going to play. And of course it's for not being responsible. Basically just not being a responsible teammate and adult. I just found it funny.
No, Mason's audio is cut off. Can't hear you.
I think
the suspension is happening right now.
Quinn Ewers is an excellent quarterback. I would love him, especially if Arch Manning was to transfer to Oklahoma. That's exactly what he said.
He was about to say some wild shit, and Zion's representation sent the SUVs, and they cut off his mic. Still can't hear you, Mason. Gonna have to do a reconnect. Hop off and back on. Well, Jay and I got this.
In the know after dark. It's everyone.
So, yeah, right. Shout out to Ari over here. It looks like he's breaking some news that he's headed. He's headed. Trey Jameson is headed overseas. Seems like he'll be headed to Fenerbahce. So cool stuff happening on the pod. Um, thank you for sharing, Ari. Appreciate it. Mason, you wanna? I hear your mic thing.
Okay, well that's good.
Oh, we're back. We're back.
We're back.
Mason's back.
We're back. All I said of value, or potentially not of value, is that I thought that my first thought was the Pelicans are really committed to tanking for suspending him. Yeah, I guess after the Herb Jones news, relatively speaking, I was just kind of like emotionless besides that.
Yeah, so the timing of it's pretty interesting because it was very shortly before Willie Green's press conference, and Willie Green did answer to reporters, and he indicated that this is not like a one-off or one-time event. There was like a series of events that led up to this, and the most recent thing was Zion was late to the flight, which was what was I think Chris Haynes reported and a few other people reported, and the culmination of things led to the team decision to suspend him. Now I have a lot of questions for you guys regarding this as we sort of like work through this. The first question I have for both of you is, should they have done this?
Yeah. I mean, sooner or later you got to set a precedent. If they're saying this is a ongoing thing, continuous thing, you gotta the line got to be drawn somewhere. And even if you say, well, why they didn't do it when he was hurt, it wouldn't affect them on court. Players want to play. That even if they make so much money, the money hit wouldn't have mattered as much as you can't play. That hurts more. That always hurts more.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to believe that if there was, if this was not the first instance, like if this is the first instance, no team is going. Like, I mean, think about how many times you've seen players get suspended for being late. Like, it doesn't, you don't see it, right? And so, if it was a one-time thing, I'm gonna believe that the Pelicans are willing to be lenient on Zion or any player for that matter. So, I think what we don't know is the big thing here. It's like what else has been going on? How often has this been happening? In what environment? Like what things have we not been told? Or what things will we never hear, publicly about this trend? And so I think given all that, I mean, I'm going to assume that this was warranted and potentially a little bit overdue.
So I guess if we were to add a layer of context to this, I don't think it's some sort of big state secret that Zion has been a person who has been habitually tardy in the past. Since he's come into the league, he has been a person who has outright missed practices or team events, or frankly been unreachable at certain stages of his career. Now, all of the conversation around Zion is that stuff was trending upwards in a direction to where it was happening less and less, but that doesn't mean it wasn't still happening. So my reframed question to you guys is, if you've been operating for 5 years with like a certain level of leniency, to say the least, I think we can agree that if this has been happening for multiple seasons, the Pelicans, and we haven't heard of any suspensions or any other disciplinary actions, and I think I could be wrong, and Christian, please forgive me if I'm misquoting you, but I think Christian reported, I think this was during like the Piano Man series of events. I believe Christian reported at some point that during Zion's rookie year, there was something similar that happened. I think it was like a film session or whatever. It's something minor that he was late to. And most teams kind of have policies in place where they will fine you if you're late or tardy or something like that. And the Pelicans had an opportunity to do that, and Alvin Gentry really pushed for it. And the decision came from David Griffin and company to not do it, because we can only assume their motives for not doing it, right? I think the conversation around that time was Anthony Davis just forced his way out. The Pelicans need to be relocated, and they just can't handle stars, and then you bring in a new GM, and his entire responsibility is to make stuff work with the stars and make this an NBA organization. And so I would assume their motivation was, let's not alienate the star player, right? Let's try to build a positive relationship with him. Now for 5 years, if that's gone on, and now 6, deciding to change it today, do you think, is it worth anything? Like, should they have done it? Is it too little, too late?
I mean, yeah, it's highly convenient, right? I mean, that they do it when the team stinks. I mean, it means you really want to show something and show that you're committed to, certain standards. It doesn't matter how good or bad the team is, and so it just feels, is it too little, too late? I don't know. I mean, like, hard to say if these kind of does this actually change behavior? I don't know. Like, you'd have to get pretty aggressive, like Jimmy Butler type suspension, which has happened. Not just as an example, like that many games is something that really maybe get your attention and get the league's attention. But it just doesn't feel to me like it's meaningful at this stage, just given they're not really playing for much at this point.
I understand that. I actually I had that thought myself, but still better late than never, man. I appreciate them finally putting their foot down. Finally let it be known that, hey, we say we want you to be the man around here. Also, at the beginning of it was always Drew is being empowered to be a superstar, and Brandon was called the leader or whatever. No, we want you to be the dude, and if we want you to be the dude, we gotta show everyone that you aren't above anyone, and it's better late than never. That's how I'm taking it.
Yeah, and I think those are both valid viewpoints, right? Like, if you don't have anything to play for, if you don't have games on the line, like if this isn't a team in the playoff race, like, yeah, you could send him home. You could be like, all right, you're not playing this one. But like, is this, if the Pelicans were in the thick of it, of the Western Conference, if they were in the jumble of teams below, like Memphis and Houston and all that, like that jumble of teams, would they have still done the same thing? I think that's a valid question to ask.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to talk about this comment here from Billy. He says the leniency has clearly not resulted in a winning culture, so it sounds like the Piano Man is starting to put pressure on because he himself may be in the hot seat. And I think, to Billy's point, he's right that there isn't a winning culture here. I think culture is one of those things, like obviously, like, losing teams just don't have it, right? Like, you're seeing the Miami Heat, who are not even a losing team at the moment, but their culture is being put to the test because of things that's going on. The Pelicans have tried desperately to build something in the Willie Green era, right? That was the whole reason Willie Green was brought in. They needed stability from an organizational standpoint, and that was the reason CJ was brought in as well, to publicly help rehab the image of the team. And I think up until this year, like, all of those things were working well in conjunction and things were moving forward. They were upping their win total every year. They were in the race for the postseason, if not making the postseason, every single year. They were getting more games out of Zion. Zion was allegedly doing more and more positive things off the court that would help him stay on the court longer. Like, these things were trending, and now this year everything is blown apart. They're losing at a franchise historic level in ways that they haven't lost before, and then now they've decided to hold Zion accountable. I will say, I don't think. Here's a question to you guys, and I guess to the chat as well. If you're a GM whose job is on the line, is a suspension the move that you're making, or are you trying to curry favor with Zion or anybody else and try to, like, smooth things over? Because I think you could look at it both ways.
Yeah, well, you could bring it back to Miami. Everyone is saying Jimmy got suspended because how much security Pat Riley has, and even his statement is because of continuous issues with conduct detrimental. Like, it wasn't like his first time going on an interview and then suspending them 7 games. So you can look at it either way, but I think this is actually more like, I have leeway. I have a firm hold on my job. So now we got to put a halt to this. I'm not worried about losing my job either way. So yeah, I got to put my foot down sooner or later.
Yeah, I guess I'm not worried about any sort of, like, the implications of what this leads to. I mean, and as far as the steps to take, I mean, I think it's the right one. I don't think I think if Zion truly looked himself in the mirror and given, again, we're making assumptions here about some of the other things that have happened that to cause this suspension beyond just this one event. It seems like a slap on the wrist, more or less. Like it's not the end of the world. So I guess I don't think there's any big risk in doing it this way, and I think it's fine.
Yeah. I think before we get to John's comment over here, I don't think this is and I guess this does pertain to John's comment. John says moves like this feels like a stark signs of organizational collapse, with things like a single game suspension just seem odd, almost trying to show some spine in a whirlwind of dysfunction. And like, I definitely understand, I definitely understand that perspective.
I could definitely get that.
However, yeah, because if you've gone on for 5 years and just now, you decide to like, hey, you know what, I'm putting my foot down. It's like, why now, right?
But I also wonder, like, this is the Pelicans podcast, and we have to hone in on the Pelicans. But keep on going with the Jimmy Butler situation. The King situation was 2 weeks ago. Everyone is one situation away from spiraling into dysfunction. It's just your time to be on the Summer Jam screen and showing how rickety your organization is. But I don't think there are many solid foundations in organizations. They just know how to keep it quiet, or they're winning a lot.
Yeah, well, as our friend Billy here says, in business we say new sales solve everything. In the sport equivalent mantra would be winning solves everything. And the Kings are, I think, on a 6-game winning streak since. And certainly
Just
I don't
beat
think
the Celtics.
anyone thinks, yeah, dude.
Without Fox for some of it.
It's a bonus, man. That guy is a monster. But anyways, kind of bringing it back to the job security aspect of things, or growing a spine aspect of things. I honestly think there's a world where it's like not related to any like big picture stuff. I think it's just all right, man, this is enough. Like we gotta do something. Like this is it, right? Like it's like I've let this slide. And if this goes poorly, whatever. Like, this is a situation in which the Pelicans actually have all of the leverage. I think, just looking at it contextually with Zion, there was a lot of chatter nationally and locally about him being the first superstar to turn down the rookie max extension and take the qualifying offer and leave. There was it got to the point where, like, guys like Zach Lowe were talking about it. It was being brought up on national podcasts, and I don't think that chatter was invented or was just another media machination of trying to pry a star out of a small market. I think there were real things behind that from Zion's camp, because they were unhappy with the way things were at the Pelicans, because they were unhappy with the relationship they had with David Griffin at that time, because they were unhappy with the medical staff and Aaron Nelson and how some of the things have been handled. There was a real fear of, like, we cannot be the organization that has the first player in history to walk away from a rookie max extension. Like, we just can't be, especially on the heels of the Anthony Davis stuff, and then the Chris Paul stuff.
Can I ask a question? Yeah. Can I ask a question? I always hated that because Kristaps Porzingis wasn't a superstar who got traded because he told the Knicks that he was going to take the qualifying offer and not sign the extension, and then got the extension with Dallas once he got traded. That was always been my internal question to when that situation was going on. I was like, Kristaps was a Knick, and he was promoted like he was that dude. He was a unicorn, and he went to Phil Jackson and said, "I'm not taking the extension. You need to trade me."
Yeah, and not a dissimilar thing where Porzingis was a guy that was hurt. He did tear his ACL, and then he had some legal stuff off the court and there's just a lot going on with the Knicks, and they were like, fine, we'll do this. But they got something from him, right? They didn't become the first organization to lose
absolutely
to that. And so I think there is a real thing of, like, could the Pelicans have played this differently and just traded him for a bunch of stuff at that moment? And that is definitely one of those things that will define your career. Would get people fired if you do it wrong. And I think, in my opinion, they would not have had ownership level clearance to trade Zion, right? Like I think ownership at that point, like we can, like it's same logic there. We can't be the team that loses Zion. Like we'll do whatever it needs to be done to get Zion on board. Part of that is letting go of Stan Van Gundy, right? Now that was a situation where Zion and his people had a lot of leverage. The leverage has completely changed in favor of the Pelicans, right? And it started with Zion breaking his foot before he signed that extension, which led to that contract that he signed having a number of stipulations in it that significantly unprotected the money on the back end of his contract, which is now, because of his continued inability to stay on the court, is completely unprotected. And so now the Pelicans are in a situation where they're like, cool, if you're going to Jimmy Butler your way out of this, we can always rip up your contract, right? If you're going to try to do anything, like we hold, you know what Brad Beal said? I hold the cards. The Pelicans hold the cards. And so my question to you guys is, do you feel like this is just like them understanding the leverage that they have and the situation they're in? Because, you know, the early parts of his contract, when the first 2 years, that stuff wasn't unprotected yet. Now it is, right? Now we're at a situation where all of that is unprotected.
I mean, it's a good point, and they have thrown that in the media numerous times that the contract is non-guaranteed. So you never know in this world. It's like you say, it's all about leverage, it's all about negotiation. And if you got any little power, you are going to use it in this league. It happens all the time.
Yeah. I guess there's a couple of things go through my head. One is, yeah, you have the leverage, but if I'm Zion, and maybe I'm not super scared to call your bluff, because I just don't believe you're going to pull. We talked on prior podcasts about how like that's a very unlikely scenario they would ever do that, and they would trade him and let the other team figure that out before they would actually blow up the contract. And so, but on the other hand, it seems like a silly thing to try to call the bluff, because what's in it for Zion? Like I don't see the upside, and the only downside is you're suddenly a free agent in a market where there's no cap space. So good luck trying to replace that money somewhere. So I guess but it doesn't feel like either side has a lot of upside in this whole game. This whole game of chicken. Like given all that, I mean, like the Pelicans did what they thought they had to do to start to act like a serious organization and try to get Zion to start thinking more seriously about how he, carries himself. But beyond that, it's not like there's any sort of like transformational thing. I think it's going to happen on either side here.
Can we bring the John comment, his most recent comment about the multi-game suspension? I think the Jazz are up a couple games later, so I believe if they would have did the multi-game suspension, everyone would have just said, "Oh, you're just finding ways to tank games." That's the first thing we all said was, "No Embiid, Paul George hasn't been great. They got an unwinnable game, and they're suspending Zion for that game." And everyone thought the tank. If you would have did a multi-game suspension, well, this is a good way to lose games, not to have Zion playing. So I don't know if the message would have been sent, at least by the fans, if they would have did 3 or 4 games.
I do want to interject here. The thing with team suspensions is they're done in a very, very official capacity, and they get filed with the players union, and it's not easy to just, shout out Nikias. It is actually pretty funny optically. This whole situation which is like, it's like it shouldn't be funny, but it is, right?
I'm laughing, man.
It is. You can't help but laugh. But they have to file these with the players union, and because of that, you can't just like lay down like a 10-game suspension, right? Because what's going to happen is the agent, that's when things starts getting adversarial. That's when things will start corrupting relationships, and that's when they file a grievance with the players union. And chances are, like, if the grievance is upheld, then you look like the asshole team that tried to do too much. Then when you've had 6 years of doing nothing, now all of a sudden you're trying to like do it. So like, while it may be a slap in the wrist now, it does set precedent for the next time it happens. It's gonna be a heavier suspension, right? Like the Ja Morant thing. Like, how long did the NBA suspend him the first time? Like, was it like 3-4 games, right, or whatever this is? I don't know. I'm making a number up, but that second suspension was a lot longer, right? Because he went to Adam Silver and he apologized and he was like, I won't do this again. And then the second thing happened, and then he did it. Zion apologized to Miss Benson per the statement. And so if it happens again, you apologize to the team. If it happens again, now they can be like, well, it was 1 game this time, it's 7 this time, or 8 this time, right? So to me, Mason, your point about upside is right there, right? Like that is the upside of it. It sets a precedent for the future. And as our friend Jay Miles says, it's a paper trail of offenses. But I think the bigger thing is, and it's a point I think Jeremy made earlier, is it's the rest of the team that you can now also hold accountable to that level. And I'll be honest with you, like there's folks on this team in the past who have committed similar offenses. This happens on every team, right? And every single team has had multiple players that have been late to number of things, and typically the way it gets handled is they're fined privately, no one ever hears about it, and that's that, right? Like it never become the suspension, I think. But however, the most recent one I can think of is Grizzlies forward Gigi Jackson admitted in an interview that he got suspended for a game after his 4th fine with the team. Like he had a meeting with Kleinman, and they were like, "Yo, man, you got to get your stuff together." And he got the message, right? He got the message. These things happen on every single team. But there's been people on the Pelicans in years past who've had similar situations, and they've kind of taken note of how Zion and maybe some other folks that are highly paid on the team perhaps don't really participate in the way the fining is handled with the team. And they've been like, well, we're on close to minimum level contracts. Like, why should we also participate in the team fining structure if they aren't participating in it? And that's a completely valid point. And so now this allows you to like nip it all in the bud. You're like, cool, we've allowed this to go on for too long. This is it. So my next question to you guys, and it's a follow-up for this, is we've already kind of touched about this. Do you think this is the start of the collapse of the relationship for good?
Nah, I don't think this is going to be something Zion puts in the back of his head and say in 5 years and he's on another team sitting down with Chris Haynes saying I was doing everything right and they suspended me, and that started the spiral of our relationship. I just don't believe it's going to get to that. I'm hoping that he is an adult and saying, I got to get my shit together. Like, this is them telling me I got to get my shit together, and he learns from it, and we have whatever the rest of the season is and beyond.
I think it's almost like a non-event. It's if other things weren't going to send the relationship between the Pelicans and Zion down the spiral, this sort of shit ain't doing it. And I guess Zion's probably sitting there saying, all right, yeah, this is probably a long time coming. And as long as I don't break the rules consistently, he probably still feels like he's going to be, all right. Like the next time he's like, are they going to suspend him again the very next time he does anything that's out of line with what they expect? Like, I guess I don't know. Probably not. I would expect maybe you got to do a couple more things out of line, and so then just kind of like the very next time you break the rules. So I think it's I don't think it's going to change anything.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I'm in general agreement with you guys on that one. But so I think that kind of makes my next question a little bit weird. Is do they need to trade him?
Heavens no.
Really?
Hell, look, it's not like they won't trade him. They've put his name in rumors before to try to get the scoop pick. So it's not like they're scared to trade him or scared to rattle some cages, but
for our audio only listeners, an amazing comment by F Funky. He says new banners in the practice facility of joy, mindfulness, and punctuality.
Do they need to trade him? Not for this. Nah. they don't need to trade him for this. They would need to trade him if someone gives them 5 first-round picks. That's why they would need to trade him. But
Yeah.
Well,
I
I mean,
wouldn't say for this.
well, I guess Mason, I'm gonna let you answer first before I.
I mean, I guess it's similar to my whole talk track here has been. This is like a blip on the radar to me, and so nothing about anything we've discussed on prior podcasts about Zion Williamson and should he be traded, should he not be traded, changes one bit with what happened today. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess my whole questioning for you guys would be that like the trading him becomes more about can you continue to have this entity around your team and continue to attempt to build around it. And it goes beyond, obviously, we've had this conversation in depth before, but again, just to reinforce it, it goes beyond just the injuries. It is, how you've approached your job as a professional these past few years. And we know a lot of teams in the past have had things like, when DeMarcus Cousins was getting traded, like what did Bill Simmons say? Like half the teams in the league have a no boogie rule. Things of that nature where a lot of teams will red flag people from a behavior or intel standpoint and want no parts of them. And the Pelicans have certainly avoided pursuing certain player types that fall within that category. And I would bet a lot of money that if Zion wasn't on the team currently, if he was like on the Charlotte Hornets or whatever, and this exact situation was playing out, I would bet if you were to put David Griffin and people in that organization under a truth serum, you'd be like, would you trade for Zion? And they would list out the same, I guess same reluctance they have for trading for some of those other kind of players as they would have with Zion. That's my genuine opinion there.
I like how Pelicans film room said he's an entity, like he's a parasite. Yes, he's Edgar from Men in Black. But he. I guess if you say would another team put him on a no trade list, sure, I would say that the lack of punctuality, more importantly, plus less than 200 games played in his 6-year career, is just something to stack on top of the file. But as the guy he's on my team, this isn't the straw that'll break my back. I kind of think like Jimmy Johnson would say.
How many straws are going to be on your back, though? That's my question.
I have a back. I'm 300 pounds. I'm like Jerry Jones in the 90s Cowboys. See you, offensive lineman, I don't know. Yeah, you can do what the guy who can put up 40 can do. Like, it's not right, but that it would be my mentality when it comes to getting rid of a person. No, he can bring me more, and it ain't fair, but the fair is in Franklinton, where you can get you some tea.
Sonny, Sonny has a comment that says, "Let's collect all the problem players and build a rehab facility." I believe that's called the Los Angeles Clippers.
No.
Well, Shu, I think it's interesting you said, and I agree, by the way, that the current version of this franchise prioritizes certain things and maybe the past iterations did not, because I think about when the Pelicans did trade for Cousins, it was about where are the market inefficiencies? Where can a small market team like New Orleans get a super talented player that maybe other teams don't want for those same reasons, and roll the dice, right? And so, but I do think you're right that where this franchise is right now, as far as their leadership and what's important to them, I do think that is the decision they would make about Cousins or about Zion is probably not interested. But I think there are arguments that they would, because you're in a small market and you want to do whatever you can to add talent, and if that talent's going to blow up in your face, so be it, but at least you tried, right? So just I think very, very different philosophies potentially on that kind of player acquisition strategy.
Yeah, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Do you think because they are tanking and this is a 2-player draft, do you think they may be doing this to also set a precedent for the next young guy that's coming in, to let you know, like, we got letting the superstar know now that he isn't above the law, is a precedent setting, and it's something you also are putting out for the future.
I would say that is a welcome secondary or tertiary benefit of this. I really do think there's no grand scheme behind this. I think it was, we're tired of this, man. That's it. That's it. They're probably, you know what it probably was? Like, they're probably just sitting on the tarmac waiting for him to get on the plane. And who knows, maybe, you know, like, there's probably a lot of flights backed up or something, and they were just like, can't do this, man. Like, come on. Like, and there was Pelicans film room's question about, does his close relationship with DeJounte help pad the blow of the suspension? Could they not get away with it without him? You know, I think I can only speculate on that. I don't know. I don't have any information on that. But I do think it's worth wondering out loud that if DeJounte played a role in approaching the team and being like, hey, man, like, we need to hold guys to a standard, including Zion, starting with Zion. And if that was the kick needed, I don't know, right? This is all speculation on my part. It does seem within DeJounte's personality to do that, right? There was another question or another comment here from Eric. He said, I would have welcomed this story 2 years ago. And he said, this feels like it undercut everything we've been hearing about Zion's growth. And I think that is a very, very valid point. And I think what kind of like makes it sting a little more is that everything coming from the organization has been like, even like today, like post suspension, just like, you know, chatting with folks around the org, it's like, he's been doing everything right. Literally, it's this tardiness thing that he hasn't kicked, right? Like, from the player that he was when he was a rookie, it's like he's done. He has taken the steps, but it's just like, dude, show up on time. And it's one of those things. It's like, fool me twice. Whatever the line is, man. I'm not gonna embarrass myself here.
But all right, George Bush. We can I can also think of the other way, because this is how I'm thinking of it. He's done all this, but he can't kick this habit. And this is a way to kick this habit. He has been better. He has been a more mature, more responsible adult, but he just can't get this tardy thing down pat. So I gotta get through him some type of way. We try to be nice. Now we're gonna be. I don't think it does anything to, in my view, to undercut all the stuff he's done. But I can understand your point, Eric. I truly do.
So I think, how would you guys die? I mean, like, you know, put on your armchair, like, psychologist hat or whatever. What would you say is like the source of this? Do you think it's I think I don't like to answer my questions before answering them or asking them, but I do want to say, like, it should be obvious that, like, Zion bears the lion's share of the responsibility. Only has himself to blame here. However, I think there are a number of things that contribute to things like this continuing to happen. And I'm curious where you guys are at with that, and what factors do you may think have contributed to a continued habit of tardiness or things like of this nature.
Man, I'm gonna maybe answer it a little bit differently. And I think what's concerning to me is I can't pretend to know what's driving it, but it shows a disrespect for your teammates. I think that's the biggest concern I have, is that whether you're, think that exact scenario you explained, like, everyone else is waiting for him. Like, no one else wants to be sitting there waiting to get to Philly. And then, if it's practices, if it's whatever, not like they're waiting for him to practice, but I think just feeling like other teammates, maybe feeling like he's being held to a different standard than me. And like when he plays, he's a superstar, but he hasn't been on the court enough to be like, some players do get that type of treatment, and it is what it is, right? Zion hasn't earned that type of treatment. And so I just think about the teammates, the rest of the organization, and like, how are they feeling about this? And like, the Zion appreciate that. And that's what concerns me the most, is that if you've got to assume that there's some, lack of appreciation for some of the ways he carries himself. And, but if Zion continues to do this, then it shows that he doesn't really care about that.
Yeah, I completely understand that. Like, we at the job, homie. My time is just as important as yours. When I land in Philly, I might have something I need to do. I mean, have a phone call that I can't get in touch with when we in the air. Like, you have to respect my time the same way I need to respect yours, and we need to be on one accord with this. So yeah, I'm not worried about the organization, but as you said, you got to respect my time. I'm your coworker. I'm your teammate. My family may be expecting my phone call. You don't know what's going on, and you disrespecting me by doing that.
Yeah, I want to comment on something that's playing out in the chat right now. I think Mike is talking about how this may have leaked to reporters and whatnot. And I think Mike, what happened was Willie Green gave a press conference while this was happening, and he said all the exact things that the reporters have said with regards to Haynes. If anyone has watched the Haynes briefs, uh, the Haynes briefs on Twitter, there is a big framed CJ McCollum jersey behind the Chris Haynes briefs, and
Are
I
you
will.
trying to speculate that the president of the Players Association may talk to reporters?
I
Also,
will. I will not comment on that.
Chris, we gotta get some wings on that on that wall, bro. Like, do we have a 6'7" limit? Like, KOC at least has an Ingram one or something. Like, we gotta have nothing. You have 3 dudes. They all have to be shorter than you. I just want to know what's the purpose for having Brunson, Lillard, and CJ on the wall. That's where my mind goes.
Yeah. Shout out Chris Haynes though. He does do great work. And yeah, I guess going back to our level of conversation, I think there is at least one topic that I forget which player. There was a former player that talked about. In fact, our chat is hilarious, man. I really appreciate you
Yeah,
guys
y'all gotta come
just
live. I'm telling y'all, man.
just having a great time.
If you listen to the audio only versions, man, come in here, man. We are laughing. We are clowning. Wings win. I'm sorry. Nakaya said wings win rings. That's hilarious.
They do. Yeah. Name me a point guard. That's what I'm joking. Jay Miles says CJ had a wine tasting to be at. That's why he went for 18 in the first quarter. Hilarious stuff. Kind of going back to Zion and I think one aspect that maybe it was Gilbert Arenas, maybe it was Shaq, maybe it was Chuck. I really forget. Someone's gonna have to dig it up for me. Someone brought up a while ago when Zion was in the news for a different thing at a previous time that this is a reflection of the people that you also surround yourself with, and at some level it's a failure on them too. So whether that's his close family, whether that's his homies, whether that's his partner, part of being in an NBA ecosystem, part of what comes with that is making sure that the player that you're really close with is at practice at the right time. Doesn't have things that are obstacles from that keep them performing at the level that they're performing. And I really wish I could attribute that quote to whoever said it, but I think it was a really poignant point. And I think that applies to Z, who, like, again, speculation on my part. I wonder who he has in his corner as a support system that is helping him through this. And as Mike comments here, is like Zion clearly doesn't. He doesn't have those people. And so I guess, like, what are your guys' thoughts on that?
If anything, if you can say be caring, be understanding. If anything, don't mess up the money. Like, this is money. If that's your homie, this is money we could have chilled with. This is money we could have went out and got some grub with. He's losing that money. And if you're supposed to be his support system, you gotta look out for him, because if something does happen to him, that messes up everybody. Sure, I could be caring. I'm believe his people care about him. They love him. They cherish him as a person, but also you messing up the money.
Yeah. Well, to me, it's it's something that develops over time. So I think his crew can tell, or his family can tell him, hey, you shouldn't do this. And who knows if that's going to stick. I think it's habits that develop over a long period of time that might just be hard to break because they're, it's a part of who he is. And so I think you need to have a very strong force in your life to overcome habits that you've built up over a long period of time. So again, obviously speculation, but that's how I view it.
Yeah, I'm with you. And again, like none of what we're saying here, to be very clear, absolves Zion of any responsibility. And I think, as we've touched on throughout this podcast, it certainly doesn't absolve the Pelicans as an organization for enabling him for as long as they did, right? Like to a certain level, especially if you're an NBA star, if an organization is repeatedly allowing you to do certain things or behave in a certain way, that is how you will operate because you've been allowed to do so. And you know, like while the Pelicans do get credit for I guess drawing this line here today for the reasons that they did, they also deserve their fair share of the blame for creating this environment in the get go. So we're I think we've covered a lot of this stuff, and I want to ask you guys, like, are there like really any big lessons learned from this?
I learned that if you take 43s and make 18 of them, you have a great shot of winning. Like a tardy suspension doesn't hit me with dealing with this team. I wish that I could be more caring when it comes to this, but I learned that if someone goes for 38 against an injury depleted team, you have a good chance of winning. That's what I learned from today's events.
Yeah. My point of view on this whole situation has been well documented throughout the podcast. So I'm just going to say I hope this gets, even if it improves Zion's behavior by 5 or 10%, it's a worthwhile move. And so yeah, let's hope that it does. But I'm with Jeremy on this one.
There's a comment here from Uptown Steve that says his stepfather runs everything, and I think that is not the case anymore. Just to be clear, I think his stepfather is still obviously someone that's very close and important to him. He's not the person calling the shots anymore. I'm not entirely sure he was always the one. He may have been someone that was the most vocal in public about it. But right now, it's Zion and his mother who, he leans on his mother to support him and help him make a lot of the decisions. So it's not his stepfather. Is how I would categorize it. Yeah. So I guess my parting thoughts would be, if you're Zion Williamson today, do you take this as a big slight and be like, I need to get off this team by February?
No, I mean, not. I'm going to choose to believe that he's not so disillusioned that he doesn't understand that the trend of the pattern of his behavior was something that needed to be addressed in some way, shape, or form. And if he really feels that a 1-game suspension is going to be enough, is enough of so much of a slight that he needs to get off the team. And I just question how this trade, how a trade request, or how that belief didn't come 2 years ago or didn't come 3 years ago. So I don't think. Oh, I muted myself that time. It's
Cut him off. Cut him off.
It's not to say that he wouldn't be open to a new location, but I don't think this single event drives him significantly to want that more or less than he wanted it before.
If it would, like, I echo his sentiment, Mason's sentiments exactly. I just need this to anchor him to a point till he's putting 55 on Mike's Celtics on Sunday. That's what I need. I need Mike to get a double nickel hung on him by Zion. That's what I need this to motivate him to do.
Speaking of Mike, he says, I think the media reaction may matter more than tonight. And I think I am that is something that I am very interested to see how it plays out in the national conversation. My prediction in our Discord would be that it's going to be a lot of people blaming Zion, and because I think there was some conversation in our Discord about like whether the organization is going to once again look like a laughing stock around the league and whatnot. And my opinion is the way this is going to come off is the Pelicans did the right thing. This is the thing that they've been dealing with for a while. I think Wendy's probably going to have a lot to say with this. Wendy is very, very plugged in with these type of things, so I'm can't wait to hear him on the next Hoop Collective or if he writes an article or whatever. I'm interested to see how that plays off. But I'm with you guys in that general sense that nothing that happened today is new information to anyone on the Pelicans, right? Like there isn't any catalyst where it's like, this is how we felt about him this season or up until this point, but today we're just like out of it. Or same thing with Z. Like nothing that's happened today is like is an enormous change from the day-to-day like workings of things. So I think no one can predict how this is going to actually unfold. It's certainly going to be an entertaining time with the team. I hope we don't have to do many more of these emergency podcasts for this reason. I forget who had the comment here, but they said, why? Here we go. John, of course, said, can we just be a bad drama-free team? And no, John,
Where's the
never
fun
going
in
to happen.
that, bud? The content content. We told y'all at the beginning of the year, this team, if it's not anything, it's gonna give us content.
Speaking of content, appreciate everybody on the chat that stopped by. You guys really made this thing pop. I really am enjoying our live shows. They've been a great way to interact with the fans and just also bring up things that like necessarily like we won't touch on or cover. Like you guys have great questions, so appreciate everyone making the time to hang with us tonight. Late tonight. Jay, you want to take us home?
First and foremost, thank everyone for listening. Thank everyone who came to watch. Thank everyone who's gonna watch post live show, even though you're gonna miss some of the jokes. 559 of y'all have subscribed to this. We appreciate that. Let's try to get that number to 600. Yes, hand claps, everyone. Please like, please subscribe, hit the thumbs up, hit the bell. We're gonna have a wonderful 2025. Prayers up again to all the victims in Los Angeles. We are going to have a pod where we don't have to send condolences in 2025 as well. And thank y'all for spending y'all Friday night with us, chat. Y'all have a good one.
Appreciate y'all.